What's going on, good people? Welcome to the Paul Rivera Podcast. Extremely excited about today's show. It's not often you get to introduce a guest that goes just by the first name. I have Raven, celebrity photographer amongst many things. She discusses what she would call a humble upbringing from the Bronx, discusses her first big break with Future, discusses shooting Hove the God, and then the Queen Bee and everything in between. I think what you'll listen to and learn in this show is her skill as a photographer is incredible, but pales in comparison to the person she is. I hope you enjoy the show. We're back, people. The Paul Rivera Podcast. I am actually very excited about the guests we have today for a number of reasons, but the main reason is it's not many times you get to interview someone that goes by one name or one name only, right? It's like the Kobe's, LeBron, Shaq, Oprah. We have Raven with us today. Raven, what's up, Raven?
Wow, that is like a really that is such a good introduction. Maybe I need to start my own podcast and put that in.
There you go. Well,
like
don't steal my job already. Don't steal my job already. Ray, what's going on, Ray? Thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
I was excited when you said you could do the podcast because I know you don't do podcasts or do a lot of this stuff. So thank you. And B, I was surprised you had the time to do it because I'm surprised you weren't, in Paris or some shit.
I've only been to Paris twice, as you like to remind me, once a week. I honestly have a lot of free time. My life is either like super nonstop busy or like very, very chill, which is something that I'm trying to change because I think I need a little more structure and a little more of a routine. But I feel like working for myself, I do have a lot of free time. It's just deciding what to do with it.
How do you describe, because I think you're bigger than, and we've had this conversation, do you define yourself or describe yourself as a photographer? Are you a creative? Are you a, like?
I think at its base core, I'm a photographer. Like
Okay.
If I got on a panel or on this podcast, I would say I'm a freelance photographer that works for themselves. But overall, I do describe myself as a creative, a creator. I'm someone that wants to create experiences, create moments, create emotions out of my photos, create photos. I'd eventually like to get into movies and film and like other things. It's not limited to photos. But as of right now, like my base of who I am is a photographer. Yeah. Okay.
I think as talented as you are as a photographer, I think your greatest skill is like you're like a regular person. Like you're very personable. You're like, I think a lot of people, a lot of young ladies, especially as I see you're following socially, can like really relate to you, right? And I think some of that probably has to do with your upbringing, I'm guessing. So I want to start like at the beginning, like born and raised in the Bronx.
Yes, another thing you always remind me of because the first time you met me, you were so surprised that I wanted to drink Hennessy. You were like, oh, you're definitely from the Bronx.
Definitely from the Bronx.
But yeah, I'm from the Bronx, born and raised. I still live in the Bronx to this day. So I'm very much Bronx.
You won't be there much longer. As the checks start to roll in, things get different.
I'm always like, man, no matter what, like I feel like living in New York, just because of the price point and what you get for your money.
Of course.
Like living in the Bronx has its like ups, especially depending on where you live. So,
is there a good area of the Bronx? I'm being serious.
Yeah,
I've only been to Yankee Stadium.
That's so crazy because you're from New York.
Born and raised.
Yeah, there's a lot of good places in the Bronx. I mean,
It's not good character. I don't
like to define things as like a bad place, because I feel like I'll go to. You can go overseas, you can go anywhere, and like you're not necessarily from there, and it's not a good place for you because you're a stranger.
Yep.
But I think for me, living in New York my whole life, I do very much so love the Bronx. I wouldn't want to live in Manhattan unless I had like a super fire penthouse, or like a super fire loft, because I feel like you're paying. I used to work in property management, which I guess I'll get into, but you're paying like $3,000 for like a 1-bedroom, and they don't even give you like a stove. Like you have like these microwaves.
Where is someone paying $3,000 for a 1-bedroom in Manhattan?
Down here.
You know what? I need to find that property manager and maybe move.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, even that's crazy. Like,
so is $3,000 getting me something nice in the Bronx?
Yeah, you could get a really nice apartment in the Bronx. You could get a little condo.
We should go be roommates and like ball out in the Bronx.
No, I'm literally like you could have a really nice condo in the Bronx for around $3,000.
So Bronx your whole life.
Bronx my
family
whole life.
In the Bronx.
Family in the Bronx. Well, I've raised in a single parent home. I've been raised by my mom.
Okay. Who's the shit from your Instagram?
Yeah,
I love her.
Wants her own podcast, but I refuse to
live.
let her get on it. Her having a private Instagram account is as far as it goes for me right now. But everyone is always telling her to like make a YouTube or make a podcast.
Hey, by the way, not to cut you off, my mom's on Instagram, and I'll post a picture like me, LeBron, and Victor or something, right? And she'll be like, "Who's the handsome one in the middle?" I'm like, "Mom, don't do this shit right now, please, man." Like,
I'll like send my mom photos, and she'll ask me questions like, "Do they know your name?" And I'm like, I've been here for months. What do you mean? Do they know? I would hope they know my name. But yeah, her, and she's like, you probably see her in other people's comments because she only follows like 60 of my friends.
Okay.
And every single photo she writes like a really thoughtful comment, like, "You're amazing." Like, she's just very positive on Instagram.
Dope. That's dope.
So I want to keep her in that space. But
I'm not mad
so
at
I was raised by my mom.
Okay.
I have one brother from her side.
Okay.
I have
older, younger.
16 years older.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. So for most of my life, he was like living his life, and now we're like in a space where we're getting close because like we're kind of around the same age, I guess, where we like the same things.
Is he kind of like dad? Like, who you dating? What you doing?
No.
Like, I don't. Okay.
He's like in his 40s, but he's like in his 20s. So I feel like
so he's like trying to be like, "Yo, who's your friend?" Like,
no, he's kind of like, "Oh my God, you take pictures of all these people I love. Can you send me the photo?"
That's dope.
Yeah, but so I have siblings, but I was raised as an only child, which I think plays a big role in like how I was raised because it was always me and my mom. So yeah, she was just pretty much a part of everything. Like, she pushed me, she motivated me, she literally did like anything she had to do to make sure I was okay. So we never really went without.
Which you appreciate so much more as an adult now, right?
Yeah.
Like you realize that rent didn't just magically get paid. Like,
and I also realized like there were probably nights when I was like, "Why aren't you eating?" And it was for me. Yeah. But like as a kid, you're so naive and you don't know that your parent is doing everything they can for you.
It's a beautiful thing, of course.
Yeah. So now, one, it makes me not want to have kids right now.
Best form of birth control.
Yeah,
yes.
And two, it just makes me really appreciate my mom so much. But it also makes me understand why, at this point in my life, it's so important to include her because for like 20-something years of her life, I was her life.
That's dope.
So now as an adult, it's like kind of being mindful. Like, this person is still very much a part of your life, and like, they're not just being a parent, like they really care about what you're doing because they've had such a role in it. I don't mean to get sad.
No, I get it.
But I just think it's important because I feel like, you know, you meet people that they don't have the luxury of still having their parents in their life or getting to share that success, or you meet people that are like so disconnected that they don't realize how important it is. And for me, it's like, I'm always trying to like do things to make my mom proud, as like dope. Cliche as it sounds. Shit, so
if you can accomplish that, you're cooking with gas. You're doing something. So what was, give me, let's say 13-year-old Raven in the Bronx. Like, were you into sports? Were you always into photography?
I mean, I always liked photography. Okay. I always tell everyone that I still, to this day, my mom has like this huge garbage bag of photos because I guess she was obsessed with photos. Like, but
not just photos, just like her photos,
candid photos of her and her friends.
Oh, dope!
Right?
Okay.
So I used to like sit in the living room and look at these photos of people I didn't know that were very much, I think, to a degree, the style that I like to shoot now, where they're very familiar and you feel like whoever took the photo knows the person. So I would just like look at those. And she was always kind of taking photos of me growing up, like for award shows or the first dance, the first everything. She was always making sure she captured. So, but 13-year-old me, I pretty much I was in theater. So I was like a drama kid.
Oh, shit.
Which is really funny because
Can we get you to act out a scene right now?
No, but I am very dramatic still. But it was something that kind of helped me get out of my shell because I was like I was pretty shy. To a degree, I still am. So 13-year-old me was like in a drama group in the Bronx, and we would put on like Shakespeare plays. And
there has to be footage that exists.
Yeah, I have it. But
Producer E, I need you on this. We need to put this.
I will give you like one photo. I have two photos of myself in drama. One, I was playing a guy which was like so funny, and like the other one I have on a wig, which is also very funny. So I will give it to you.
Give me one. Give me something.
I never stuck with things growing up as a kid because they didn't fulfill me, and my mom would be like, all right, well then, you know, you don't have to stick it out, like just try something else. So I did dance, I did cheerleading, I did drama. I'm not athletic at all, so I didn't do really anything athletic to that degree. I was like on a step team maybe for a year.
And when did you know, like, when was it like from not a casual, like you always appreciated photography? Like, when was your first camera that you appreciated? Let's go there.
My first point and shoot was after probably like 11th or 12th grade. I went to high school in the city. So I went to middle school in the Bronx. I went to high school in the city, one of like the 6 specialized high schools at the time. Okay. Because I didn't get into Bronx science. That was very stressful for me. But lo and behold, I decided I wanted to do like architecture or engineering. So I went to a high school where that was like the focus. Mm-hmm. And we all had to take like extracurricular classes. So I took a photography class, and they kind of just taught us the basis of Photoshop, the basis of using digital cameras. And then I was like obsessed. But I was like, man, at that point, I feel like I didn't think that I could do it as a full time. So I didn't want to go to college and major in photography. It was still kind of taboo. Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay, well, I'll go to college and I'll major in marketing. And then I can do like advertising and still have like that photography aspect, but it not like be my full focal point. So then I went to college and I majored in media culture and communications at NYU Steinhardt.
Did your mom know what that was? Was she like, how are you going to make money doing that?
I mean, I feel like even to this day, she'll be like, are you working this week? So
100% parents are like, how are you making money?
Yeah.
That's
so
all
even
cool.
for communication, she was like, well, like what do you, she always probably thought I wanted to be like a lawyer or a forensic scientist or an engineer. So I was going to school, but can I curse on here?
You can do whatever you want. It's your show.
So I like fucked up, and I just didn't like really listen to my advisor and was trying to take classes I thought sounded cool, but were like really hard. Like I should have been taking like writing one and like math, but I was
like, what's trigonometry?
No, like what is like marketing 207 when I should have been taking writing. So it was like, I'm like really good in school, but I just have to be focused. Like my whole life I got straight A's. It was never hard. And then I got to college and I wasn't focused because I was like going to school in the city for the first time. I was like working at Urban Outfitters.
Couldn't tell you shit. You lived your best life.
I was like going out to concerts at night, taking pictures just for fun to like get into the show. And I wasn't focused. So my grades started to fall and I lost my scholarship. And I was like, oh my God, like, what am I going to do? I cannot pay $50,000 and go to school. And I can't expect my mom to pay $50,000. She doesn't have it. So I was like, okay, I'm going to just take off a year. And maybe I'll go to community college. Maybe I'll do something else. And then I'll go back. And then that just didn't.
Haven't been back since.
No, I did go to community college for like a half a semester. And it was so... It was so frustrating for me for like a number of reasons, because it's like you have a lot of kids that are in there that are super smart and just don't have the funding or the opportunity, and like no one cares, so you're behind. And then like I was way more advanced being there, so it was boring to me because I was like, I could do this in my sleep. I really don't want to be here now. So then I had to have another conversation with my mom, like, hey, I am not going back to school for a little while. And I think that was like the driving force to where I am now, because for so long I was like, I have to make up for not finishing school. Like I have to be successful or this whole thing is like a fail.
Yeah, it's for nothing.
Yeah, she's like, I helped you with all your science projects for like 10 years. What do you mean you're not going back to school? So then I had a bunch of odd jobs.
Well, I remember when we met or when we first, kind of came in contact with each other, you had a job. I don't know where it was. Maybe it's the
2013.
Well, here's what I'll say about it, and you'll know where you were. You had a job, but you were starting to take photography serious, and you were doing little projects, and you at least knew it was your passion, but you didn't know if you could make a living off it.
Yeah. So when I first met you, I was like doing like the BA stuff for like Game 7 and for Beats and like that stuff. So I was like doing like brand ambassador stuff and like trying to get into the creative space, but I didn't really tell anybody that I did photography per se, because I was like, they're not gonna hire me. Like they're hiring like established photographers for this. And then I started to kind of trickle in like, hey, I do this. I could shoot like BTS for this. So I was getting gigs on the side, but I just didn't feel like I was ready to quit my job. So I got like a property management job, and I was like a receptionist right here in Soho and stuff. And I was like, oh my God, I am dedicating like 40 hours a week to this job I hate.
And that's the conversation you and I had, right?
Yeah, because you were like one of the first people I called when I decided I wanted to quit my job.
I was like, quit it. It'll work out, right? I was like, I don't know how it'll work out. Well, you know, I give that advice to a lot of people like you, in that it's like, if you're a great person, let's start there, right? And you're passionate about what you do, 9 times out of 10 it's going to work out, because people want to help people like that. People want to help people that are good people, and that even if they're not great at their craft in that moment, want to be great at their craft. So I remember telling you, like, it's a scary fucking thing, right? It's a scary thing to be like, I'm going to leave this check that I get every week or every 2 weeks for the unknown. But I always believe that you could always go back. You could get that job, another job similar to it, and it's kind of like that leap of faith. So was there a moment where you're like, okay, like when did you decide I'm taking this leap of faith?
I was like at my job, and my boss, he was just so annoying. He always wanted
hopefully he doesn't listen to this podcast.
I hope he listens, because he would just make him like Nespresso drinks like 3 times a day, and like he'd ask me to order ridiculous like salads with nothing in them. And one day he just was like, I need you to do this. And I was like, I cannot do this anyway. Like this, I have to quit this job. And honestly, like, I'm not even saying it because I'm sitting in front of you, but because you were like one of the only 5 people I called. And I always remember like sitting with you in, I don't remember what hotel it was, but we were like sitting in the lobby, and you were like, hey, do you know anyone that can like be my assistant? I'm starting a company. Yeah. It's just me. And I was like, you're starting a company?
No, I was the company.
Yeah. And you were like, well, this is like, I got this. Like, I feel like I know enough people. Like, I've done enough jobs where I know what I want to do. And I was like, okay. And then like by the time I was going to quit my job, your company was so established that I was like, oh, okay. Like,
you're like, if that dummy can figure it out, I know I can.
No, but like it's possible, right? And it's attainable if you have a plan, which is why I always tell people, everybody wants to quit their job. Like, people tweet me all the time, I just want to quit my job. And I'm like, okay, why do you want to quit your job? And like, what is your plan if you quit your job? Like, for me, I was just like, I want to make $1,500 every 2 weeks. Like, that was my goal. That was
your thing. That was your number.
That was just my goal.
Yes.
Like, I need to make enough money to like, that was kind of what I was making at my job at the moment. So I was like, if I'm making the same amount of money, then I'm not losing.
There's some security to that. Right? Yeah. Because the money itself is relative. Whether it's you need $1,500, someone needs $500, someone needs $15,000. Like, whatever gives you ease, which says, well, I know I'm not going to starve if I make this.
And I'm not going to be completely broke.
Because it's a scary thing. It's a very scary thing.
And I think it's like, that's the other thing. Like, you can always go back, right? I can always like go and apply for any office job, any job at all. So why not give the 40 hours to something I'm really passionate about? And so I was like, okay, I'm going to call everybody I trust that like either works for themselves or could kind of give me work, and just be like, hey, like, I'm available. I will work for this amount. Like, if you have a gig, like, let me know. And like, you were one of the first people to be like, okay, I got you, and would call me. So then I quit my job, and I had to tell my mom, like, hey, I'm quitting my job.
She's like, look, school was one thing. What the fuck are we doing
at this point, she's just like,
where did I go wrong, Raven?
Yes. Like, and if you know my mom, you know that's probably what she really said. She was just like, I can't believe this. But then she was like, okay, you've never failed at something when you want to do it, and I have faith that you won't fail now, so like, go ahead. And I was like, okay, if she's okay with it, I'm gonna do it. And and now July makes 4 years that I've worked for myself.
What do you think was so first of all, congrats. That's not a very small thing. Like,
thank you.
Working for yourself a year, 4 years is an eternity, so congrats. It's a testament to you as a person and the work you do. What would you say was your first like big break, even if now it pales in significance, but at the moment where you were like, oh shit, this is really working?
Well, I feel like I've done for the last 4 years like a lot of event photography. So in one sense that started to feel like, okay, I have to turn these pictures around very quickly because the client wants them. And like dealing with clients and like, you know, not realizing not to take things personal, I'd say, but maybe that's like on a tangent of work. But then with music, I guess, when like Future asked me to go on tour, I was like, holy shit, like this is like really happening. Like this is really going to be my job.
Because as a fan of yours, just as a fan of you as a person first and foremost, and then of your craft. For me, on the outside looking in, like that to me was like your big break when I was like, oh shit, she's really doing it.
Yeah. Do you remember we were at All Star Toronto, and I was still like, I was shooting for you guys for like beats and other stuff, and then I was like, oh my god, I think I'm gonna leave and do Future's tour for like 10 days. You were like, what? And CGF was like, no way. And I was like, yeah, I think I'm gonna go. And so that was, I honestly thought that I wanted to just really follow artists or anyone and like do that 24/7. So
like be a specific artist's like photographer.
At that moment that was my like goal, like oh, this is what I want to do.
It's a big deal, like
and then I just didn't.
Once you get in, you're like, this ain't sexy at all. Like,
well, another thing that I feel like people don't realize when they see people own companies or especially creatives is like, you're still to some degree working for someone.
Oh yeah.
And now it's not just one person, like every other month you might be working for someone else, you know, and you still have to please someone. To some degree, you still have a boss per se. I don't like the concept that people have of a boss, but you still have someone who has needs that you have to fulfill, and you have to do those things. Yep. And, you know, you're working on someone else's time, you know? So for me as a photographer, I'm still very mindful of that. I respect that. I respect people's time just the same way I respect my own time. But I think it's a misconception to just think you're going to quit your job and like, oh, I'm going to run free. Like there are still responsibilities in whatever you do.
Yeah, I think people are enamored, or a lot of people are enamored by like the idea of being their own boss. I've very rarely told the story, but I think there was a point in my life where I was like down to like $72, and I knew there's a big check. There's a $10,000 check coming in. That check might come in this week, might come in next week, might come in the third week, right? So now it's like dollar slices for lunch and dinner because we got to stretch this $72 just to make sure, you know. And I just think a lot of people don't understand the level of work and discipline it takes to like work for yourself.
Yeah, because you're working for yourself 24/7. Yeah. Like you don't clock out at 5 o'clock and say I'm done. Like for me, sometimes my day starts at like 9 p.m. and it doesn't end till 5 a.m. You know, when I was on tour, we didn't start shooting until 9 p.m. We were there all day, and then we were editing till like 3 a.m. and then you're waking up and you're like on the go. So I feel like it's not you have to create your own structure, and you have to understand that like you are your own boss, you're your employee, you're your intern, you're all of those things at once, you know?
I literally was like, I can't remember what company it was, the commercial, but like in the first days of Robot, like if you called, I was the assistant answering the phone, connecting you to myself. And by the way, like if there was an IT issue, I was connecting you to myself. Like it was like all me. But I think what I will say is that mindset you had of like, I'm done when the job's done. You know, like you've met obviously JT, like my executive assistant. If you ask him like, what time are you done? He'll be like, when he's done. Like it's just, that's the commitment you make to yourself and the investment you make in yourself. So you go from the Future tour, right? 10 dates. At that point, are you like, I've made it? Like I made it. I'm good. No. Mom, we can retire. We did it.
No.
Because I've told this story before. I took a job, my first job working at Nike. They told it's funny now. They told me I was making $70,000 a year. I called my mom. I'm like, Mom, we did it. You could quit your job. Like we did it. Like we made it. She was like, boy, that's $70,000. Ain't no real money, you know. But like, so did you think like, okay, like
no, no, and it wasn't 70. It wasn't there yet. It's still not there yet.
Okay.
But it was like, okay, I can like.
But it was proof of concept. You can make a living doing this.
I can make a living doing it, and I was like, "Ooh, I did this for 10 days, and I'm way better than I was 10 days ago."
Okay.
So I was like, I enjoy it, and I kind of want to, keep doing it. I just didn't know to what degree, because I feel like he had his own photographer already. It was more so like, I really like your work, so let's add you in for the tour, versus like just be with me full time, which I really do appreciate, because I think that I'm the kind of person to some degree, like I'm my own artist too. And I love that I can pop in and work with artists and work with athletes and work with anyone and then be able to pop out. So I'm really grateful that Future gave me that opportunity. So then I was just still kind of, most concerts I've ever shot that weren't tours were for free. I was like shooting Summer Jam for free. I'd shoot like a Big Sean show for free just because I needed the content and I wanted to shoot it. And I was lucky enough that I knew someone that could get me a photo pass or was aware of my work.
For my own knowledge, is that a normal thing? Like photographers shooting
to a degree,
shows for free? Okay.
I think so.
Okay.
Like I think at this point, if you don't work for like Getty, I could be wrong, but I feel like if you don't like work for like Getty or Shutterstock or Wire Images, it's like if you don't work for the artist, I don't really know who's paying you or the label.
Okay. Yep.
So if you get a photo pass, a lot of times it is for free.
Now you've told me that's not like, even that's not the sexiest thing. It's like really like very competitive, even in the pit itself.
Yeah,
right?
which is why I was like, man, I have to be hired by the artist because I cannot be in this pit with 50 guys like with book bags pushing you. It's not comfortable, and I don't want the same shot. So it's like, why do I want the same shot that 50 people are gonna get? So I was just kind of doing that stuff, and then I got the opportunity to do Jay's tour for 444.
So how's that happen? I want to spend a little bit of time on that because you just casually are like Jay as in like Jay-Z.
I'll just summarize it.
Yes, please.
I basically was at, I feel like he was familiar with my work through Lenny and
Lenny S.
like through the internet. So through Kodak Lens, Lenny S, and through the internet, he had like probably seen my work title, all those things. So he knew of it. And then I was at Made in America, and I didn't have a photo pass to shoot his set. I could shoot anything else in Made in America but his, because he only allowed like 2 people to shoot it, which was like Lenny and Kevin Mazur.
Okay.
So I was like, okay. So I was so upset. Like I was mad at Lenny. I was mad at literally everybody at Made in America because that's all I wanted. So I was just taking photos from the crowd. There was a guy next to me.
So you're in the crowd during Hove's performance.
Yes, where he had the big Jeff Koons balloon.
Yeah, and you're taking pictures in your camera from the crowd.
From the crowd. And there was a guy next to me. Forgive me, I don't remember his name, but his Instagram handle is like Photo by Beans.
Okay.
And he was like, hey, like I have a 70-200, which is a longer zoom lens. He was like, you could use it for like a few shots. So I like used it for a little while, took some photos, and then after the show, I just tweeted the photos. And I was like, Hove put me in the pit next time.
You added him?
He doesn't have, no, I just wrote Hove put me in the pit.
Okay.
That was it.
Okay.
And then.
See, but to me, like that's and I have the pleasure of calling you a friend and knowing you for years now and seeing you grow. To me, most people, how old were you then?
I was probably 26.
Okay, so most 26-year-olds that are talented, that feel they should be there or could be there shooting, would like pout and hate and whatever the case may be and feel that you just did your thing. You continue to stay true to your craft and say, you know, I'm going to shoot this.
And I was kind of like, man, like there's photographers in the pit, so that shot is taken, but you're not going to see it from this perspective. So like maybe it would be cool if you're the artist and you see this huge balloon like from far away. So then like a day or 2 later, Lenny hits me up and he's like, hey, he saw your tweet. I'm like, okay. And he's like, oh, he emailed me and said like you could shoot the Meadows Festival in Queens. Like he was like, put her in the pit. So I was like, oh my God, I made it. And then, so then I shot that show in the pit. And I was
that experience any different for you? Like,
it was
it is Hove and you're in the pit. You feel like you're part of something probably.
Yeah, and I'm just like a New York kid. Like I literally am raised on his lyrics. Like that's like when you ask me why you quit your job, it's like these are the songs. Like I'm listening to my first song. You know what I'm saying? So I was like freaking out, trying to like take the best photos I've ever taken in my life, which I look back on them now and I'm like, these suck. So I did that. And then they asked me to shoot like his New York show. And again, I didn't have I wasn't very close, but the stage was so massive that I decided to shoot like the actual structure of it, more like wide shots.
Got it.
And then the next day, his publicist, Jana, who I always say is like an angel and changed my life, really, was like, hey, so he wants you to come on tour. And I was like, okay, when? He was like, tomorrow.
You're like, I'm there.
I was like, okay.
You're like, I'm at JFK right now, actually.
Like, do you have a passport? I'm like, of course I have a passport. Like, let me just pack my bags. I was like, I will get on the train and meet you guys in Washington, D.C. So I got on a train. And then I was gone. The tour had already been going on, so I did like the second half of the tour.
So let's stop for 1 second. Like, you got a phone call or an email?
About which one?
The tour.
Phone call.
You got a phone call.
I kept getting these phone calls that were making me cry.
Someone's on the other line saying, hey, we want you to, not even we, Jay wants you to come on tour to shoot him. Is that what are you feeling in that moment? Are you like, holy shit, is this really my life? Because similar to you, like we all grew up on Hove, like living in New York. Like, what's that moment like?
I was like, okay. And then I remember I like hung up the phone and my mom was there and then I was like laughing. She was like, are you okay? And I just started to cry hysterically. Like, I was like, no, I can't believe this is happening to me.
Wow.
But I think, like, the whole trajectory of my career for, like, the last 4 years, it's, like, another, like, I'm crying moment. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, it's always a moment where I'm like, this isn't real, this isn't real, this isn't real, this isn't real. Now it's real, but it's still not real.
I've told you, and look, no disrespect, obviously, to you or to your craft. I believe there are probably a ton of photographers that do great work.
Yeah.
Right? And maybe a ton's a lot, but there's enough photographers that do great work. I think one of the things, again, like I said this earlier, that separates you is not only you're a great person, but I think you take your craft, even at a young age, because you're still super young, you take your craft very seriously, right? And seriously means being a pro, being on time, turning shit around on time. You know, I've worked with you in that capacity. It means like not posting shit you're not supposed to post, asking for permission, you know, like where did that come from, like your professionalism?
Okay, so my biggest thing, and I don't know where it comes from, it's probably just how I was raised, but I take privacy very, very serious. And I think that like, one, I don't take the opportunity for granted, but two, celebrity or not, like you're a human being, right? So for me, if you're allowing me in this space and you're allowing me to capture you and document you in like very personal, private times, then I owe you the same respect to keep that private, you know? And I think a lot of times people want to tell people, they care more about telling other people that don't matter that they're in the room versus like valuing the time that they are in that room. So I don't like to use my photos as a way to like exploit people's lives. And I don't think that celebrities deserve any less privacy than you and I. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's always been like, okay, if I don't want someone to post a bad photo of me, then I'm not going to post a bad photo of somebody else. Like if I don't want someone to post something differently than I would have posted, then I'm not going to. I'd rather just wait, see what you like, see what you're comfortable with, see when you decide to use the photos. Sometimes there are so many photos I've taken that no one will ever see, but they're in people's homes or they are important to those people. And for me, that's like why I do my job. It's because I want to like create moments for these individuals to like share and save for the rest of their lives. And I think that with social media, it's kind of been skewed. Like you feel like you have to share everything. You have to tell everybody what you're doing and everybody what you're talking about. And I just don't agree with it. So I'd rather someone feel really comfortable with me and keep calling me back than like work with me once and be like, oh, she just wants to post this on her Instagram.
Right. No, and to that end, I remember obviously you've shot LeBron, right? And I think the greatest compliment he could give you is, I want to say it was maybe 2 years ago or something. You were shooting him for the NBA Finals, and we had done like a Beats lounge or something. And as I always do, I'm briefing him like, hey, so you're going to do this, you're going to go into this room, and we have a photographer shooting, and it's going to be this, and they're going to get shots at the beginning, and then you're fine, you can do whatever you want to do. And he's like, okay, who's shooting? So we walk into the room, and he's like, oh, it's Raven? Like, yeah. He's like, oh, man, nobody worried about Raven.
I still like die every time I hear that.
but it was the utmost compliment where he was like, oh, you didn't tell me it's Raven. Oh, what are we talking about? Right?
Yeah.
And I think you have done a great job of, again, people feel they can trust you, right? Which is, to your point, whether it's trust or loyalty or just respecting people's privacy, that's probably the greatest asset you could have besides your actual talent of being a photographer. So I always think of that when I think of you. I always think of that story with Bron where he's like, oh, you didn't say it was Raven. I thought it was a photographer. Like, Ray's like, he's not even here, right?
It's like so funny because people, like, I'll go into meetings and stuff, and like I do want to get into sports photography to some degree, just kind of like in my own way. And people say, well, have you shot any athletes? And I'm like, well, I've shot LeBron James. And they're like, and I'm like, but that's it. Like, just him. And it's like, I'm like so lucky and blessed, and I'm so thankful that I've like been able to meet people like you in my career, and just other people that have been like, hey, like we trust you enough to put you in this room, and that I've earned my way to stay in those rooms. But it's just like really insane because when you're shooting celebrities or athletes, you're just like, they're human beings, you know? And you see them with their families and their friends, and you're just like, and then you go online and you see people think that they know them, and it's just so crazy. I'm sure it's even crazier for you, but it's just for me as the photographer, like I've seen people like see a photo I've taken and tell me what was happening in the story, and I'm like, this is not what happened at all.
And here's the thing, the more time you spend with uber talented, famous people, celebrities, athletes, whatever, the more you realize they're actually normal people. Or the more you realize they're like, oh, that's just like my cousin or like my crazy uncle or like my aunt or whatever, right? Like, I've seen Bron be with you and be like, oh, Ray's acting different today. Like, you're like, what are you talking about?
Like, all of you keep making this joke that I'm too big. And I'm like, if everyone thinks I'm too big, I'm not going to have any work. Please don't think that I'm not.
I tell you, Bron was like, I don't know if we can afford her no more. I'm like,
I was
well,
like,
shit.
Please keep hiring me. This is my disclaimer. I am not too big for it yet. But I do also, now that I have some free time, I've been trying to focus on like personal projects too, because I think the biggest thing is I need the people I already work with to know what I'm capable of too, and I need to hone in on like my own creativity so that I can grow. And I think I've had all these like monumental moments in my career, right, that are like people, I've Rag to Riches, Cinderella, like all these stories, and I'm like, okay, well the bigger picture for me is like I want to do this for the rest of my life, so how can I keep creating work that like inspires people to want to work with me but also like inspires me too. So
I love it. I mean, that mindset alone will get you wherever you want to go. So I want to cover two more things before we get out of here, which I think were significant moments in your career, at least, again, from a fan's perspective. One is the Apple event.
Okay.
Right? So how'd that come about, and did you realize, like, that was a real moment for you?
Honestly, that was like one of my favorite moments, and to this day, like people still tell me that they've like learned tips from me, which makes me like melt, because I think like educating other people, and like I think everyone should be able to take a good picture. I think it's dumb to just think that only photographers should be good at it, because you should be able to document your life to the best of your capabilities.
And let's tell people what the Apple event was. Also.
Okay, sorry.
It's my fault.
So, I was asked to do an Apple talk at the Apple in Williamsburg. My really good friend Katie.
So I'm gonna stop you again. I'm sorry.
I'm gonna explain it.
Raven from the Bronx was asked to do
an Apple talk.
That's insane.
It's really cool, right? But also, like, another one of my little checklists is I really want a billboard, and I wanted one like shot on iPhone, but I also want like one shot on my camera. So when they asked me, my friend Katie, she was like, hey, like we're putting together these events in Brooklyn, and we're trying to, you know, get more creatives involved, get people that people know or don't know, like would you be able to do it, and talk about how you take a lot of photos on your phone. Because like side note, when I'm not carrying my camera, I do like to take a lot of pictures on my phone, partly because my camera is super heavy and I don't like to carry it all the time. And like, it kind of keeps me inspired, like just walking around and taking pictures. I take pictures of everything. So I was like, okay, I'll teach them like how I edit and those things. So it was like 100 people. And I remember I was so excited because she was like, the RSVP is full. And I was like, oh my God.
Oh, people are going to show up. Okay.
And I was like, how many people? And she was like 100. And I was like, okay, we'll work with that. That's a big deal. So then I had like, 50 of them were my friends.
As they should be.
But there were 50 people that were not my friends that I feel like are now my friends. And there was like an hour of me just teaching people how to edit in their iPhone app, and like how to take better pictures and things like saturation and shadow and highlight and things of that nature. And so I did that, and then I did another Apple photo walk where I walked with a group of like 20 people around Brooklyn, and we took pictures and we edited them together and we talked about it. And and then I met people at Apple corporate, and they were like so nice, and they're like people I just love so much, and they had me go to Cupertino and like sit down and like talk to somebody about the new iPhones, and just it's been really like a cool experience because it's so much a part of my life. And I think part of everything I do is I want people to know like it's organic, you know, like I really do this just for the thrill of it. It's not because I'm paid or anything like that. So I mean, is it lost on you? It's like, this isn't what I think. It's like Apple's the most successful company in the world, right? It's Apple, right? So they have access to literally whoever they want in the world. And for them to come and partner with you or care about, you know, your thoughts or insight,
is that lost on you? Like how big that is?
Well, when you say
especially
it like
this early in your career.
When you say it like that, yeah, yes, it is. No, not to a degree. I think that's why I'm always having these moments of like self-actualization where I'm like, oh my God, like these things that I've talked about and wanted to manifest are actually happening, and they're real. Mm-hmm. So I don't think I take them for granted, and I don't lose sight of them. But I think to a degree, because it's happening and I'm so in it, that I forget how big this is, or how big it's going to be, you know?
So speaking of how big it is or how big it's going to be, you and I won't say the brand of the event, but we were at an event that I had actually asked you to come to as a guest, right? We were in Queens.
Okay.
It's actually Shea Stadium, if you remember.
Okay, yeah, I remember that.
And I remember asking you just as like the little homie, like, so what's up? What are you up to? And you had this child day before Christmas, like, oh my God, I got to tell you something. I was like, you good? You're like, yeah. And you pulled me aside, and that's when you gave me the news that you were going on tour with Beyonce.
Oh, yeah.
Like, how's that? I mean, because here's my thinking on it. It's like, you've already shot Future on tour. You've shot Hove on tour. You've shot LeBron James. Like, this isn't what I think. These are the biggest artists and celebrities in the world. But there is another level.
Yeah.
Right? I said you go by one name. There's someone that goes by one initial, right? How'd you get that news? How'd that happen?
Well, that came basically through shooting Jay. So I did his tour, and then I was introduced to her team and her. And then I did Coachella. And then
she murdered, by the way. Oh,
yeah, it's God. Like you can never go back. I don't know what anyone is going to do this year. And it was my first time at Coachella, too.
They should just cancel Coachella.
Yeah, I experienced All-Star with LeBron. Coachella would be, I'm just like, I can't like do regular things anymore. I just don't want, nothing is as fun. So then they were like, hey, would you be willing to come on tour? It's 5 months, Europe and America. And I was like, oh my God, like, yes. Of course.
Duh.
Because I've said in like interviews previously, like that was my dream, you know, like that was like she was the only person I really was left that I really wanted to photograph. And in that capacity. So I was just like in shock when I told you I was like in shock. I think a couple months later now, I'm still in shock. I'm very grateful, but I also think that it was something so crucial to my life and my career, because I learned so much about myself in those 5 months, and I learned like so much about like work ethic and like working at the highest level all the time. And that's why it's like so inspiring, because like you, as a fan, you're already inspired. You're like, oh my God, this person is incredible, you know? Then you're in that space and everybody around you, including the artist, is always working to the highest level. So you have no choice but to work to the highest level. And as a woman, I already feel like I have to work to the highest level all the time anyway. So to be in that space for 5 months, it was just so like the rush and like the adrenaline rush and like the euphoric feel you get, it was just like surreal. So
can you I'm going to play it off like it's like, for the people that follow you and want to know, it's really me selfishly want to know. What's the day-to-day like for you
on tour?
Yeah, for someone like what's that look like? You wake up, what's that look like?
Well, it depends like on a show day versus like we have off days. So on off days, if we weren't like editing stuff that maybe we hadn't edited, you're just off. But on show days, you could just
say living your best life.
Living your best life.
Clear. Okay.
Drinking a lot of Sauvignon Blanc for months.
Okay.
We were drinking a lot of wine.
Love it. Very on brand. But on a show day.
Okay. You get up. You're on the bus by like 12 noon.
Is this one of the bunk bed buses?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. I love sleeping on bunk.
Do you?
It's the best sleep.
Grown ass woman loving bunk beds.
The bus rocks you to sleep every night. So it's like cozy and it rocks you to, it's like the best sleep.
But you gotta love like the people you're with though.
Yeah,
too,
but
right?
I was
you had a good crew, good people?
And it was like 12 creatives. So we all had like the same, like it was like the content creator, like video producers, creative directors. So we all work kind of the same hours, and then like we're all together. We all are doing the same thing. So we were like super close. Like we're honestly so close to this day that we still have a group chat and we still like miss each other. And I feel like because I work for myself, they've become like my work family, you know? So we get on the bus. You make like I would make like a peanut butter and jelly because I love PB&Js. Then you get to the venue. You'd eat, and then
How many hours before showtime, before curtains, do you get to the venue?
Well, we were getting to the venue at like 2 or 3 o'clock.
Like, that's the shit I love, and I talk to Future, the Prince, who you know, obviously Drake's manager and DJ. I nerd out on that, like the logistics of it, because I'm like, I think there's this whole world, like, of Instagram followers that think you show up when Beyonce shows up.
No.
And when curtains go, you pick up your camera and you shoot some shots.
Or like
and
you're flying there, right?
Yeah, you're on the PJ, like all these things. And I'm like, no, like it's real work.
No, like we're showing up, we're like lugging in our equipment.
So what time does B technically go on stage? Like what's her?
They would go, well, it was BNJ, which I feel like is so crucial because I wouldn't be there
if it wasn't for Jake, right?
Without him, and he was also like such a focus for me on that tour. Mm-hmm. But they go on at like 8:30, 9.
And you're at the venue arena at 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so you got that too, and then what's the rest of your day like?
You're hanging out, you're walking around, you're taking pictures of the venue. You start to take pictures of the crowd when they come in. You shoot the opening acts. We'd like rotate between like Chloe and Halle and Khaled, and then you shoot the show.
Okay.
And
what's that like? You have like a spot you're assigned to? Like what's...
No. So the best thing about touring is that you get to see something 50 times and do it 50 different ways, but you know it so well. So in the beginning, I would like probably stand in one spot, and then like by like show 10 you're like, you know what, let me go over here. And by show like 20 you're like, no, this is the moment I need to capture. But luckily they were constantly changing things and like changing looks, so there was always like a new moment. It was never like old. So then around like you're like you're working, you're shooting, and then around like 6 or 7, like you shoot like pre-show stuff, then you shoot the show, then after the show you edit.
And then, so what was it like when you saw your first? Because there's been photos you've taken that have been used in print of B&J. There's been photos that they've put. Like, what was? I'm trying to get, like, was there a moment when you're like, oh shit, this is like real, like I really, like I've done this?
Well, when I first I took a photo of Destiny's Child at Coachella, and it was like in a magazine, and I was like hysterically crying because I was like, when I was 13 and I was like obsessed with Destiny's Child, I was like, when I'm old enough to shoot them, they're not gonna even need me. And so to capture that moment was like so insane. And then I saw a photo I took in Germany in like a German paper. It was a picture of J&B standing in front of the Olympic wall in front of Jesse Owens' name, and he was like the first African American to run and win in the Olympics while Hitler was still.
And you took this photo?
Yeah, I took the photo, and she had like her fist up, and I was like, it was like really important to me because it was like the first photo that I thought of before they had gotten there, and I was like, this is like so important, like we have to make sure we get this photo, and then it was in the paper. Like, there's something really important to me about my photos being tangible. So seeing things in print is way more important to me than like seeing them on the internet.
Lives forever, right? It's
and I could, like, my mom puts them
touch
in.
And feel it,
she puts them in Ziploc bags.
That's mom. That's mom shit. Yeah.
I was like, oh my god. So that was like really insane. And then I think like just being in Europe and meeting people that knew me and like cared about my work was just like surreal.
So I've had 2 moments that made me like extremely, aside from like the moments we've had together, like that made me extremely proud of like what you've accomplished. One was Rock Nation brunch, the clip that came out of Jay being like, I'll take this photo in a second. Where's Raven? Like,
I can't believe I missed that photo because I was going to get a little plate of raviolis. I will never forgive myself. I was so hungry. And the line was short. And I was like, oh, this is my time to get this. And then, like, I didn't even know it happened until I saw it online. Like, I had no idea the whole brunch at that moment had happened because I was standing on the side eating raviolis. That's like, that doesn't define
that's such
who I am.
Such a Raven moment right there, by the way.
If it doesn't define who I am as a person, like, I do not know what does.
And the other one is a more of a private moment that we still haven't gotten done, but we will, was LeBron calling me and being like, hey, I want to do like family portraits and I want Raven to do them, right?
Yeah,
and it's like, and we're working on schedule and all that, but to me it let me know like, wow, you've built, such a trust in your skill level and the person you are. Bron can call anyone in the world. Like, let's be clear,
I hope
right?
He does
just like
it,
be and whatever. Right. But he's like, hey, can you get Raven? Can you see if Raven can do this? Right. So to me it was like, this shit's all come full circle where it's like, I remember like the young, shy girl, like, I don't know if I should quit my job and whatnot, and like seeing you on tour and seeing your stuff show up places and I also want to congratulate you and talk about your iHeartRadio before we get out of
vote
here.
For me. No, well, I want to say a couple things. One, I wouldn't be in this opportunity, especially with LeBron, without you. So I thank you a million times over. Also, it's still very, very, very surreal. Like, you see me in person, you know that I get, to this day, very nervous. But I'm very confident in what I do, and I'm very confident in, like, the product I deliver. So as, like, surreal and full circle as it is, it's, like, so exciting because I'm like, okay, I have to one-up myself now. Like, okay, I've done this. Like, what am I going to do next? Like, how am I going to wow these people next? How am I going to wow myself? How am I going to, like, wow the world? And it's also, like, working at the highest level has taught me that I don't have to say yes to everything. Like, it's really about quality, right? Because to some degree, you know, the level of trust is also, like, the trust in the person's brand. Like, you trust me as a person, but you also see how I represent myself. So making sure that I constantly align myself with things that are organic to me and represent me is really important. And oh my God, what was the second thing we were talking about? My iHeart thing. Oh,
yes. Where do people go to vote for you?
Oh, the iHeartRadio.com/awards.
Okay.
So I'm nominated for Best Tour Photographer.
Okay. I voted like 50 times.
Well, you can vote 50 times a day, every day.
50's not enough? I got to vote 50 a day?
Yeah, because, you know, and you can make another email if you need to.
That's what you've heard, not that you know.
No, I know. But also, like, this is, like, I'm taking my mom to the iHeart Awards.
That's
She's
dope.
like, she thinks this is like the Grammys. And I have to keep reminding her, like,
Hello.
I might not win. It's okay. Like, she's like, no. And I'm like, listen, she's like calling people on the phone. Like, she doesn't even know. She's like voting herself. It's like ridiculous. But I felt like I had already won. Like, I did the tour and I was like, oh man, like, I won. So for this, it was just like, even being nominated for me, it was like really crazy. And I was just like really, really excited. And we're J&B are the only hip hop artists in that category of the tour, like for tours. So that's like another thing that I thought was really cool. But like circling back to the LeBron thing, and like, that's just like the essence of what I want to do for the rest of my life. You know, like, I want to shoot personal moments for people, and I want them to just really trust me and trust my eye. And I don't ever want someone to feel like, oh, this person is taking a bad photo of me. So, yeah, I'm really excited. I hope he still needs the photos.
He does.
And I don't know. I'm just happy every day because I feel like I get to do something I really love, and I get to teach other people how to, like, manifest things they want to. Because I think that now I, like, just always want to remind people, like, you can do whatever you want, you know, like, whatever it is that you want to do, but you have to have, like, a focal point. And it's kind of cheesy. And I used to be a math tutor before when I didn't have a job. And there's this thing about, like, a circle where the only way you can create a circle is you have to start with a point. And that's the only way to draw, like, a full circle. And so I feel like that's sometimes where people lack, is like they don't have a focal point. So I'm trying really hard to always hone in on that focal point.
I love it. We started this conversation, me asking you what your inspiration was and how you fell in love with photography, basically. And you said your mom basically had like a trash bag full of photos, right?
I'll show you them. I'll take a picture.
So, but I'm sure, and no better way to end it than, I'm sure you're providing her with a brand new trash bag of photos that now are her daughter's, and she couldn't be any prouder. So I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
I am very excited to see not only what you've done, but what you will do. I hope I can continue to afford you. That's debatable.
I have been saying no to things lately, so just keep that in mind.
Hey, I sent you a note during NBA All-Star. What did the note say?
You said, thank you for always saying yes when I call.
Thank you for saying yes when I call.
Thanks for having me.
It was easy.
Good. I know that I'm probably gonna take like a while to listen to it back because I'm gonna be so nervous. I'm gonna have my friends listen and be like, "How does this sound?"
You did great. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.